This screencast supports this lesson on quantifiers, and the topic is what they call e-shopping. We wouldn't really call it that anymore, would we? We'd call it online shopping. And it's from Straightforward Intermediate Students Book by P. Kerr, Kerr, and C. Jones, published by Macmillan. So the lesson contains some discussion around online shopping and a reading on that topic with some tasks. The associated grammar is quantifiers. So things like a few, not much, not many, enough, too much, few versus little, etc. With some practice. And there's also an extra activity here with collocations with take. So you can start with your own lead-in. The book doesn't really provide one. You could get the students talking together about their shopping habits. Do they shop online a lot? What kind of sites do they use? Do they ever use eBay or any other second-hand sites? That kind of thing. I'd get them talking as much as possible about their own shopping habits, so it's nice and personalised. And then you can go into the reading. So here's the text, and number one, there are 5 questions, and they simply have to read the situations, look at the website, and decide which link they would click on for each. Now, before they do this task, as usual, we need to have a look at the website to see if there's any language that needs to be pre-taught. They've underlined some vocabulary, new releases, chart successes, classics, bargain basement. You might want to create a quick matching activity to check that they understand the meaning. You could include gift wrapping as well, wish list, maximum of 6, I'd say. And of course, drill any that are difficult to pronounce. Then they can go into exercise 1, do that, peer check, and get the answers. So that's your initial reading task. Number 2 in the book adds some more text, which is on page 133, but we're not going to do that because that's too much reading to fit into one lesson. So just ignore number 2. We can move on to exercise 3. So you're reading the descriptions again. Now it says both the one on this page, which is this website, and the 3 on page 133, and answer the questions. So you'll need to adapt this so that it doesn't include any of the information which is given in those extra texts on page 133. So have a look at them. I've included them in the class materials, and take out any questions which refer to those, because you're not going to be giving them that text. Just ask them some questions. You might need to add a few more about this text that we've been working on already. So do the example, get them to find the answer to number 1, quick peer check, answer on the slide, and then they can do the rest individually, peer check, and same procedure, feedback with answers visible. So now that we've got the context for the language, the grammar, which is the quantifiers, we can start to look at and analyse the target language, okay? So exercise 1 here starts by asking the students to work in pairs and decide whether the sentences in each pair have the same or different meaning. So this is a test, teach, test approach. What we're doing is finding out how much the students know about the meaning of the target language before we start to look at the rules. So for example, number 1, a few sites offer free gift wrapping. And B, a couple of sites offer free gift wrapping. Ask the students to talk together for 2 minutes and decide whether they think these sentences have the same meaning. Okay, so the answer is different, isn't it? A few is more than a couple is 2. See if the students can come up with the same answers, or if there's any disagreement, there can be a short discussion around that. and just get them to put an S or a D next to each pair of sentences according to what they think. Okay, so you've done the example, then allow them to either work in small groups to do the rest, I would suggest. You could get them doing it on their own and then peer checking, but you know, it's nice to get them working together and sharing their ideas about this from the start, I think. So same or different. Then when they finish that, get some feedback and ask some concept checking questions, because this is checking the meaning. You want to make sure that they're clear on the difference between the quantifiers being used in each sentence. So in number 2 it's little, in 2A is little, 2B is enough, 3 too much money versus B plenty of money, etc. Okay. So make sure that by the end of the feedback on this exercise, they are clear about the meaning of these quantifiers. So you've checked the meaning with the previous task, and now you can analyse the language rules a little bit further. So number 2, put these quantifiers in the table. So here they are again, all these different ways of quantifying nouns, and they need to have this table with 3 columns. I would elicit, first of all, an example for each. I wouldn't give them not many, not much, a lot of. I would put those in with these and say, okay, so not much, which column does that go in? Countable, uncountable, or both? So just elicit one example for each to see if they know how to do the task. And then you can put them into small groups to put each quantifier into the correct column. So have a nice slide with a big table on it and the quantifiers all next to the table so that they can talk together and decide which column they go in. Once they've done that, they can then choose the correct words in each of these sentences to complete the rules. So again, staying in their small groups. For example, use few and little without a, with a negative or a positive meaning. And there's the example sentence with little, okay? So they have to decide, is it negative or positive? And they can do all of those in their small groups, discussing and choosing the correct option. Then get them all back and get your feedback, making sure that they've all got the correct answers for the table and for the sentences with multiple choice. You can look at the language reference, which I've included in the teaching notes, to get yourself clear on all the rules for this. Then you'd want to do some drilling. So think about pronunciation in a sentence, think about sentence stress, think about what happens to individual words. So for example, a lot of people, a lot of shopping, a lot of, this becomes weak in a sentence. The pronunciation of enough, of course, it looks very different to how it sounds. Plenty of time, again, that weak of sound. Think about where the stress is. There's too much salt in this soup. There's too much salt. Okay, so think about any stress in the words, in the sentence, any linking, weak sounds, etc. that are useful for your students to know, and drill these quantifiers in sentences. Next, they can do some further practice. So we've done the first test with the same or different meaning. We've done the teach stage, going over the rules, and now this is the second test stage. So we've got exercise 3, 5 sentences. They need to choose a positive or negative verb and add a quantifier so that the sentences are true for them. So for example, I spend too much money on clothes. I don't spend enough money on clothes. So get them to do this individually, and then they can peer check their answers, comparing what they've got. Monitor this closely and get some answers from them. Obviously they'll all have different answers, so just get a selection of different answers from them and go over anything that people still seem to be unclear about. And then they can move into some freer practice. I would suggest eliciting some questions that they can ask each other in small groups before they go off into the breakout rooms. So for example, money on clothes, you could give them as a prompt. What would the question be? How much money do you spend on clothes? Okay, so they think about the questions, maybe note them down. Do you love or do you hate shopping? Okay. Do you buy, or how many books do you buy every year? That kind of thing. So they're asking questions, preparing questions that they can ask each other in the breakout rooms, and then they can answer using the ideas that they've written down earlier. Now, we don't want them to be reading their sentences aloud because that's not free practice, but do a demonstration before you send them off into the breakout rooms. So, for example, I might ask my student, do you spend much time shopping online? So there's my question. And then elicit an answer from the student. So the student might reply, I spend too much time shopping online, or I spend a couple of days a month shopping online. So they need to use a quantifier in their answer. Okay? So do a demonstration, make sure the students have got some questions prepared before they go into the breakout rooms that they can ask each other, and they can use the ideas that they've written down for exercise 3 to answer the questions, but get them to, turn over their piece of paper so that they're not simply reading aloud. You want them to try and practice using these quantifiers without looking at the sentences they've written down. Monitor that and make a note of any good examples and incorrect examples you hear. And when you call them back, ask them how similar their shopping habits are, what did they find out about the people they spoke to, and do some post-fluency correction at the end. Now this section on collocations with take vocabulary is a nice follow-up to the quantifiers lesson because it's the same topic of shopping. So it's sentences, 6 sentences, which all contain different expressions, including the word take. And they're all trying to sell something, all right? So they're all a kind of advertising language. I'd start off by getting the students to look at sentence 1. I'd probably put a picture with it. So something that it goes with, picture of a clothes sale or something like that, and have this sentence and show them the box of words and phrases and ask them to choose which one goes in the gap. You can then get them to complete the rest in small groups and then get some feedback, making sure that they're clear on the meaning of each expression with take, and do some drilling around those expressions. Then they can do number 2 and talk together about what products they think each text is trying to sell. Then in order to practice further these collocations, they can do exercise 3. So I would tell them that they're going to work in small groups and they're going to create a short advert for another popular product. So include at least one phrase with take, and your classmates must guess what the product is. So they prepare this together, come back and present their ad, and they all have to guess what the product is. You can even provide the products to each group if you want to help them with ideas. Tell them that they need to be really enthusiastic because they're trying to sell their product, and I think they'll really enjoy it.